Staging the media at a crime scene has nothing to do with law enforcement capacity at all.
Really? Law enforcement has control of the crime scene.
It is the exterior of the crime scene where the cameras are. The cameras are not in the crime scene itself. They are outside of the crime scene area, which is where Savannah would go to.
And you're making sure they don't get inside the crime scene, right?
We're ensuring that people do not get inside the crime scene that are from the media. That's correct.
But you literally did take Savannah into some crime scenes, didn't you?
Savannah's not with the media.
But she is a civilian and not an officer.
The civilians that go into the crime scenes are the chaplains, the medical examiners, ride-alongs, people like that, the ones that we described earlier.
You're telling me you would take a ride-along into an officer-involved shooting crime scene?
We never had a ride-along, I believe, that was involved in an officer-involved shooting.
Because you wouldn't take them even if someone was involved. You would stop them. They would not go into a crime scene.
Hopefully the ride-along was actually given instructions prior to arriving to the scene to where if there were shots being fired, that they were to stay in the car.
So it's a little not quite right to say that you have the civilians in ride-alongs always going into crime scenes.
It is absolutely correct that civilians go into crime scenes because they respond to the scene.
Civilians in ride-alongs, you take them into crime scenes. That's the question. Is that what you do?
Sir, give me a second. You asked me a question. I'm glad to answer it for you, okay?
Then please
Sure.
answer.
I was in the process of doing that. The civilians at crime scenes, when we go to a crime scene, civilians do go if they're in a ride-along. If they're in a ride-along capacity, they actually go. Oftentimes, the deputies will go up to the door. The civilian may be with them. That's why they're issued vests when they go up there.
So you're willing to risk the safety of civilians in crime scenes? Is that what you're saying?
They're given bulletproof vests and they sign waivers and documents before they go that say that they understand the risk of what they're doing when they go to
Do you log them into the crime scenes?
a ride-along program. If there is a crime scene that has an actual log, a crime scene log, that they are logged into it. I hope they're supposed to be.
And you said if there's a crime scene log, whenever you cordon off a crime scene, there is a crime scene log, is there not?
Not every time you cordon off a crime scene, there's a crime scene log. Most of the time, there should be. That's the best practices and best protocol. But not every crime scene has a crime scene log.
And that is the sheriff's department's protocol that has a crime scene log.
The sheriff's office policy or protocol should be to have a crime scene log when you go.
And as a matter of fact, officer-involved crime scenes are treated differently, are they not?
Officer-involved crime scenes are different than most crime scenes in certain ways, yes.
And as a matter of fact, as we heard earlier, they're ultimately turned over to SLED to investigate, correct? When there's an officer-involved shooting.
It's currently the policy of the Greenville County Sheriff's Office to contact SLED. However, that's not necessary. We could conduct our own investigation, or we could call someone else in from a mutual aid agency to do that for us.
And in the crime scene that you took Savannah in, where there was a dead person that you took her by, in that crime scene, you did call SLED to have come and investigate that, did you not?
When the crime scene, I don't know which one it was, but if Savannah was at a crime scene, the one on Scuttletown Road, the suspect was in the backyard and was shot at a distance. And we had to walk out through a field kind of area, a large backyard field kind of area to get to where he was. And Savannah did come with me.
And you took her to see the dead body, correct?
I walked over to see where the suspect had been shot. I didn't walk over there to take Savannah to see a dead body.
But she did go and see it, didn't she?
She did go see a dead body.
And again, that crime scene was ultimately turned over to SLED, was it not?
I believe so. I believe SLED conducted the investigation on that.
And part of the reason is for that because you want an independent agency to look at it and show there's no wrongdoing on the sheriff's part.
Some agencies in the state of South Carolina elect to do their own investigations into their own officer-involved shootings.
I didn't ask you what other ones do. I'm asking you what you did in this and what the policy was that day.
Some agencies in South Carolina actually use their own investigators to do their own investigations into it. We, at that time, were using SLED.
Okay, and so it was improper for you to take her to the crime scene at that point. Really, it should have been held, but you turned over to SLED.
It was not improper because as the sheriff of Greenville County, I had the authority to to walk into a crime scene that's within my jurisdiction, check on my deputies, also check on the suspects, make sure that there's no issues, make sure that there's no problems. So as a sheriff, I had the authority to do that.
But there was no legitimate reason to bring her into the crime scene.
As my assistant, again, with notes and things like that, it was Savannah's responsibility to take those notes. So if something went down or something was wrong and I needed to make note of it, Savannah needed to be the one that was there to take those notes.
You can't make note of something if it's wrong yourself?
Savannah's responsibility was to do that. I absolutely could take notes on my own, yes.
Now, one of the things, you know, Matt mentioned the command staff, and I think at one point the leadership team. How many people on the command staff team? How many people on the command staff when you were sheriff?
When I was sheriff, I think we had somewhere between 11 and 12.
Okay, and they basically govern their own departments under you, correct?
So they had autonomy to run their own divisions as they saw fit.
Right. And so these people were important people to you because they helped you run your office better.
These people were important people to their divisions, and they were important to the function of the Graham County Sheriff's Office as a whole.
And each one of these people are people who've been in law enforcement a fairly long amount of time, correct? You don't have someone just 2 or 3 years in that's running this division.
You don't, no, sir.
Okay, so between all of these people working there, you have hundreds of years of experience in law enforcement working in your command staff, correct?
I
Just
don't know.
100 or 2, right?
I don't know if it's 100 of years or so. I don't know the extent of time that those guys have. Some had 30, some had maybe 15.
Okay, so on the bottom end, maybe around 15?
I would say, maybe.
Okay, so if there's 11 of them, well over 100 years of experience.
There you go.
Plus you add the 30, probably around 200 years of experience ultimately.
Sounds good.
Okay, and are they different than the leadership team?
The leadership team was the command staff team.
Okay, so that's the same thing when we hear it's interchangeable.
Yes.
So they're the same.
Yes.
And again, not with their experience, that includes a lot of training for each person in the command staff, correct?
Ask me that again, sir.
Including their experience, they also had a lot of training as a member of the command staff.
It depends on what division that they encompass. Some may have specialized training in certain areas. Others may just have the academy training plus their time in law enforcement.
And your command staff basically are the cream of the crop to some extent as far as being able to have worked the roads, going through the ranks, and then now able to help administer and run different divisions under you, correct?
I don't know that I would use the term cream of the crop, but they were very good at what they did, and they were beneficial to the divisions that they were given. They were absolutely good commanders for those divisions.
And the things that made them good at that are the fact that they had all the experience and training, right?
Most of them were assigned to areas that they had specialized training, and they've been there for a while, yes.
But with Savannah, she didn't have very much experience or training. She's only 22 years old, and you decided she's going to be your right-hand person?
Yes. Savannah's experience and training came from the Department of Social Services and from being a paralegal. She fit well within the parameters of everything that I needed for a person to fill that position, as far as dictation, as far as note-taking, as far as email checking, scheduling. She was a DSS agent. She was able to keep case files, all the case files that she was able to keep. She knew the importance of security in a conversation that would happen. And like I said before, a lot of times we would have conversations behind closed doors with personnel who had some issues that didn't need to get out, and that was one of the most important things.
I'm going to play you a clip from the 5th recording of the conversation you had with Savannah. I believe it's already in evidence at this time. If you could play clip 5.1, please.
Would you mind if I got a copy of the transcript while you read that to me?
Sure.
Or play that?
are you looking for?
45.
We have one. Well, this is our copy of notes. Your Honor has one?
Thank you.
Move on.
Thank you, sir.
And this is which number?
I mean, I was like,
This was not distributed. Sure.
I believe it's in evidence, but has not yet.
Right, what I'm telling.
like I told you earlier, I've spent more time thinking about repairing this relationship, this friendship, more than anything. And I just can't do it anymore because everything I do is wrong in one way or another. And I'm not gonna, I just can't do it. So, as much as it would absolutely destroy me. I mean, it really would. I told you, and I mean it. I mean what I said. I would trade any one of my command staff members, all of my command staff members, for you. I would do it in a heartbeat.
So despite all the years of experience of your command staff, somewhere in the area of 200 if you add it all together, you would trade all of them for Savannah?
That's your
That's
question.
what you said?
I did. I said that. Again, not my shining moment, but I think there's some context to that, and the context is that Savannah and I had a very close personal working relationship, and unfortunately, at the time, I had the affair with Savannah, and I think a lot of that was, a combination of having had the affair and the close personal working relationship.
And in telling her that, you're even trying to continue the affair with her, are you not?
I'd like to say no, but it sure does sound like it. I mean, that's the unfortunate part about it, is it sounds like I'm still pursuing her.
And it not only sounds like it sounds like it because you were pursuing the affair, correct?
I would like to say no. I don't know what my mindset was at that given moment. But I'm not going to run from the fact that I had the affair. I'm not going to run from the fact that I had these audios come out. I'm not running from it, man. I mean, I made a horrible, horrible decision. And I made the decision to continue to pursue a woman who was not my wife. And that is, I can only ask forgiveness for that.
Now, one of the things, as far as training in law enforcement, one of the things that you would certainly, I believe, agree with is that when officers are going into a call or coming into a scene, they have to use caution, correct?
Sorry, question again.
When officers are responding to any type of call, they always have to use caution.
Yes.
And in addition to that, if a situation is getting volatile or that sort of thing, they're trying to de-escalate that situation. In other words, bring things down so they don't get worse.
That's a good attribute to have, yes, sir.
All right. And they would also try to avoid any unnecessary confrontations. If you don't have to fight someone or be in a bad situation where people are drawing guns on you, you try to not get into that situation in the first place. You look ways to avoid that, correct?
We would hope so.
Now, of course, there's sometimes they can't, but they try to. Because, I guess in other words, you don't put yourself in a dangerous situation if you don't have to.
No, sir, I disagree with that. I mean, sometimes you have to put yourself as a law enforcement officer in a dangerous situation in order to resolve the situation.
Well, that's what I said. You don't do it unless you have to.
Okay.
There are times you have to, no doubt. But
Okay.
you don't do it unless you have to. But you started from the beginning putting yourself in a dangerous situation, didn't you? By getting a pretty naive, 22-year-old girl to be constantly at your side all times of the day and night, didn't you?
She was not naive. She was pretty and she was young, but she was not naive.
But you put her by your side, and you smothered her with special perks, did you not?
She did not get smothered with special perks that any other person that was in her position would not get.
So administrative coordinators like Jackie should have gotten the same things?
It would have been really nice to be able to get Jackie a car. It would have been really nice to be able to get Jackie a phone. Jackie told me at one particular point that she did not want Savannah's position because she liked the position she was in. She didn't think she could do what Savannah did because she didn't think she could keep up with her.
Because she didn't want to have to go out after hours, correct?
Correct.
And so she was getting perks more so than what other people in her position were getting, wasn't she?
Who?
Savannah was.
She was getting perks beyond what
What other people who were administrative coordinators were getting.
she got to do things that other people did not do. Yes, sir.
And you said, you talked about repelling, that is, while you were saying other people did repelling too, that is still a perk. That's something that not everybody does.
No, not everybody does that.
And again, you've already mentioned the car, another perk that not everybody does, especially with civilians, right?
That's not correct. The civilians that are on call have vehicles.
Civilians rarely have vehicles, though, correct, for the sheriff's department?
No, sir. Civilians that are on call have vehicles, period.
I think you're qualifying with it, because civilians in the sheriff's department as a whole rarely have cars.
My apology, I thought you were qualifying it, so I was clarifying it. I don't think I
I'm saying
understand.
civilians within the sheriff's department, putting no other qualifying.
Okay.
You added the qualifying.
Civilians within the sheriff's
Sheriff's
office
department rarely have cars.
rarely have government-issued vehicles.
Correct.
Correct.
And in reality, Savannah rode everywhere with you.
No, sir, that's not correct.
Other than when maybe you had to meet up in the middle of the night when you had to go to a crime scene, but other than that, during the day, if you went somewhere, she was with you in your car, wasn't she?
Oftentimes Savannah would meet me somewhere that we would go. If we were going to a lunch and she had to go somewhere else, so no, sir, that's not correct.
So there were some times that she wouldn't, but the majority of the time she rode with you, didn't she?
If we were going to the same place and we were together leaving the office, she absolutely would ride with me.
You also smothered Savannah with constant praise, did you not?
Sorry, what word did you use?
Smothered her with constant praise.
I would not say I smothered her with constant praise, no.
And you praised her often.
Absolutely.
And you would tell her that you couldn't do this job without her.
That is correct.
That you couldn't be an effective sheriff without her being in that position.
I don't ever remember you saying that I could not be an effective sheriff without her in that position. We were definitely a team.
Okay. But you would agree that you said you couldn't do the job without her.
I absolutely said that I could not do the job without her, yes.
But when she left, you were still able to do your job, were you not?
I was able to do my job very well because I hired someone right after Savannah left.
Now, as sheriff, certainly you do, many meetings and things of that nature, but really your after-hours stuff, are you trying to tell us that every day you had to work after hours and Savannah had to stay with you during that time?
I am telling you that every day that I worked after hours, Savannah elected to stay with me.
Okay? But you would ask her to stay with you, wouldn't you?
No, sir.
So she didn't have to.
No, sir.
All right, so her job wasn't necessarily as demanding as you're telling us because she didn't have to stay after hours. That was something she chose to do.
No, she elected to stay after hours. There was always something for Savannah to do. But oftentimes I felt like Savannah was working a lot of hours at the office, and she was young. She did have her own life. So there were some times when I would leave the sheriff's office, ride the block, because I knew that she would leave, and then I would come back to work and finish up some things. Because there are a lot of times personal issues that I needed to take care of, personnel issues I needed to take care of.
But the reality of it is she didn't really have to work long hours if she didn't want to, right?
there were a lot of hours that Savannah needed to be there, yes. There were a lot of hours that she was there that she probably didn't need to be there. But she kept herself busy.
Now, you had mentioned one of the things that you did was that in Charlotte was, or before I get to that, putting yourself in this situation, you basically set yourself up to failure, did you not? You set yourself up to have an affair.
Looking back on it, absolutely, that's what happened. At the time, I did not see it. Because I would not have hired Savannah if I knew that I was gonna have an affair with her.
And Ty Miller even had a conversation with you warning about what the perception was between the two of you, correct? Back when she talked to you about the crime scene, taking Savannah to a crime scene.
Ty said that she had that conversation. It would not, again, I'll be perfectly honest, I don't remember the conversation, but it would not shock me at all if Ty Miller had that conversation with me.
You wouldn't recall a conversation where she confronted you with something like that?
The conversation that I remember specifically Ty confronting me about with Savannah was the one where she asked me if I had sex with Savannah the Monday after she met Savannah on the Swamp Rabbit Trail.
And you told her you did not.
That is completely incorrect. I told Ty Miller that I did. And she looked at me in shock and said, "Oh my God," she told me all you did was kiss. That was the conversation between Ty and I on that Monday.
But you denied to other members of the sheriff's department that you had an affair, correct?
No, I denied that I had sexually assaulted or raped Savannah.
Now, didn't you have a time when you called together a group of people in the sheriff's department to tell them that there was no truth to any of these allegations? That you did not have any, as they said, as you walked out, I did not have sexual relations with that woman?
There was a time where I called different groups together from different divisions. I didn't call everybody together at the same time. I went to different areas and had conversations with people. I never, and I specifically remember this because I'm not going to get into attorney-client conversations. However, my attorney was very specific in telling me, do not deny having sex with Savannah. Don't say that. But you can deny the rape. You can deny the sexual assault. And I denied both of those. So I very specifically remember it, and it was very clear and pointed in how I said it.
So you telling us there was never a time that you gathered any of your people at the sheriff's department together and told them that I didn't do this, I didn't have any sexual relations with that woman?
I never told them I did not have sexual relations with her. I told them I did not rape her, and I did not sexually assault her. As a matter of fact, I believe what I said.
I'm not talking about the press conference. I'm talking about when you met with people in your own office.
Correct. I very specifically remember a conversation shortly thereafter with one of my captains who said when he found out that Savannah and I had sex, he said, I knew you did. And I said, how did you know? He said, because you didn't deny having sex with her. He said, you denied sexual assaulting or raping her. And he said, but I knew at that point that you had sex with her. So that is one very specific way that I remember that. Because I remember that conversation.
You have a very interesting memory. Do you recall then telling people within your department that what Savannah says, take it as if it's coming from me? When Savannah tells you something or she sends you an email, take it as if it's coming from me, she's an extension of me?
If she sends an email, if she sends a text, if she calls you and asks you for something, or if she tells you that I said something, it was like it was coming from me. I did say that.
Now, within the sheriff's department, you have a code of ethics, correct?
We do.
In that code of ethics, it stresses the importance of integrity and keeping officers having integrity in the sheriff's department and keeping the integrity of the sheriff's department intact.
I'm sorry, ask me that question again.
It stresses the importance of integrity.
I haven't seen the code of ethics in a while, but I'm sure it probably does stress something about integrity.
And part of integrity is truthfulness.
I'm sure, yes.
But you, in your position, should be the one with the most integrity and the most truthfulness, correct? Because you're the head of the whole department.
It would have been nice if I would have been.
And you stressed trust and truthfulness when you talked to Savannah, correct?
I did. The trusting relationship was important in the position that she had, because again, there was a lot of secure information that was going around, and I didn't need her to be out talking about it with other deputies or things like that.
And you didn't just necessarily lie about whether you had a sexual encounter with Savannah. You lied about a number of things, did you not?
The only person that I lied to about having a sexual encounter with Savannah was my wife. I did not lie to men and women in the sheriff's office.
There was no one in the sheriff's department that you denied that you had any sort of sex with Savannah.
I do not ever recall, once this blog post came out, denying that I had sex with Savannah. Actually, before it, again, Tom Miller approached me the Monday after Savannah approached her on the Swamp Rat trail and asked me in a very explicit way if I had sex with Savannah, at which point I said yes, because I just assumed that Savannah had told Ty that we had sex. And Ty Miller's response was, "Oh my God, I can't believe that. All she told me was that you kissed." And that was the beginning of the people that asked me anything about it.
And basically lying destroys the trust that people have in you, correct?
If you lie, it absolutely does.
And it also, therefore, hurts the integrity of the office.
I don't think one person is bigger than the office. I think that the office stands alone. Those men and women have proven that they stand alone and that they're capable of moving forward with or without a specific person.
But when that one person is the leader of the office and the most important law enforcement officer in Greenville County, it does affect the entire office, does it not?
Oh, it does. Absolutely, it affects them. They have to answer questions for things that I did. They shouldn't have to answer questions for.
And it hurts their integrity.
I'm sorry, how does it hurt their integrity?
As being members of the office that's run by the man who's lied to everyone.
Their integrity is still intact, solely and wholly, based on whatever decisions that they make. My integrity was the one that was in question.
But it hurts the office itself.
It hurts the office in that they have to answer questions for what I did.
And it hurts the integrity of the office, doesn't it?
I don't think I know what you're getting at. What you're saying doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Yeah, what I'm saying is that I lied to my wife about having an affair, specifically to my wife. That does not jeopardize the integrity of the men and women of the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, that I had an affair. It did not jeopardize their integrity. Those men and women still have their integrity intact.
You recall that you said, coming back from Charlotte to Savannah, that what happens in Charlotte stays in Charlotte?
I did say that.
Because you wanted to cover up what you had done, did you not?
I wanted to cover it up for my wife, absolutely. What happens in Charlotte stays in Charlotte. I did not want my wife to find out that I had an affair.
As a matter of fact, you never told your wife that you were taking Savannah to Charlotte, did you?
I don't remember specifically not telling her. I can't recall if I did or not, but obviously I did not. Based on the conversations that she and I have had since then, I obviously did not tell her that.
Now, asked to play another recording at the moment. It's going to be 11.1. So it'll be number 11, phone call number 11.
Oh, yes, sir. Thanks, sir. I appreciate it.
Give me the chance to be honest with me. If I can't give give you a reason to the next minute when you come back. You would have covered that. You can get your car back.
That's the thing, Will, is like, after thinking about all of it, I just feel so like manipulated, and I don't know, it's,
In no way manipulate you or try to. My manipulation is very, very different. It's devious and it's evil. And I manipulate people. And I do that for the advantage of myself only, not for a relationship. Whether it's work or whether it's I'm completely capable of manipulating people. I choose not to. Okay. Alright.
I feel sick.
And that may be difficult to hear, so I will read it so the jury can understand as well. You told Savannah when she said she felt manipulated, I have in no way manipulated you or tried to. My manipulation is very, very different. It's devious and it's evil. And I manipulate people, and I do that for the advantage of myself only, not for a relationship. Whether it's work or whether it's something else, I'm completely capable of manipulating you. I choose not to. Okay? All right? And then Savannah says, I feel sick. The truth is, Mr. Lewis, you were manipulating Savannah at this time, were you not?
No, sir.
You were manipulating her to try and get her to go to Reno with you.
No, sir. This recording was well after the Reno conversation. This was the conversation where I was trying to convince Savannah to stay with the office. I knew at this point that no matter what happened, there was going to be a fallout. My wife was going to find out. This is the part where I get just, to the point to where I'm grasping at straws to try and save my marriage at this point.
Well, what you're describing is your great ability to manipulate people, correct?
In law enforcement, there are tactics for manipulating suspects in various areas, trying to get them to confess certain things or say certain things. So yeah, that is exactly right. I said that I could manipulate, and I could.
And I'm not talking about this day that you were manipulating her to Reno. When you had the first conversations with her that first day on her driveway, and then later when you were in your car, you were trying to manipulate her to go to Reno, weren't you?
I was trying to convince her to go to Reno, yes, sir.
And you were trying to manipulate her to do that, weren't you?
I was trying to convince her to go to Reno.
Through manipulation.
I think it was through manipulation, but I was definitely trying to convince her to go to Reno.
Let's walk through the convincing of her to go to Reno. You can play the second tape. It's going to be 2.1. It's on the second call. Sorry, 2.0.
The probability.
2.0, please.
I don't want you to miss out. Quite honestly, I won't go out. I mean, if you're not going to go, I mean, I love Brandon. I mean, there's no fun to be had in going out there. There's just no fun.
All right. And part of telling her that was so that you could get her to go out there so that you could carry on an adulterous relationship with her, correct?
Yes, to carry on an adulterous relationship, I would say that was probably what I thought was gonna happen.
Okay. And that's why you told her ultimately that there was a high probability that you would stay in the same room, correct?
I did tell her that.
And that, when she was saying no, you tried to convince her through telling, well, you know, everybody has female partners at some point. You know, you gave the whole story about how Ty Miller would do that, and there was nothing about changing or being in the same room. No one thought anything of it in law enforcement, correct?
Well, that's not 100% true, but,
You said that to her.
I did, I said, yeah, yes, it is 100% true that I said that to her.
All right. And what's not true is that's really not what law enforcement does. That's not an acceptable practice in law enforcement.
That is not an acceptable practice in law enforcement, but it does not mean that on occasion it has not happened. It is not excusable, and I should never in any way have discussed it or tried to use that as a convincing factor for Savannah.
And so you would agree with me that you were in that instance trying to manipulate her to see things in a different way so that she would agree to come?
To see things in a different way, that would be fair.
Now, the sheriff's conference in Reno, you had already told through text another sheriff that you weren't going to go to that, correct?
He refreshed my memory of it. I didn't remember that conversation, but he refreshed my memory of it.
And so that is correct. You did that. You had decided when you asked him about it, it wasn't worth it.
At the time that I spoke with Sheriff Wright via text messages about going to Reno, Martine actually, that was here earlier, was trying to change my mind and convince me to go back out there. Either way, it would have been irrelevant because we being my wife and I already had a scheduled event to go out of town, so it was already paid for. So we were not. No matter what, I was not going to Reno.
Okay, so this is something new. But yet you're trying to convince Savannah to go to Reno with you. And if she had said yes, you would have gone to Reno, wouldn't you?
No, actually, if Savannah said yes, knowing that I can't remember if it was the Disney cruise or or my wife's reunion, but either way, we had them both scheduled, and we were either slotted to go to the French Quarter Inn, which we already reservations for in Charleston, or we were going to on the Disney cruise. So I don't remember which one it was, but there's no way that I was going to go to Reno. My wife would have cut my head off if I would have gone to Reno.
But yet you went to great lengths to try and convince her to go to Reno with you. So you're telling us you weren't going to go? Is that believable?
Should be very believable when I tell you that my wife's going to cut my head off if I don't go with her. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Would it be fair to say your wife might cut your head off if you had an affair?
That
You did that anyway, right?
That was definitely my thought. I did have an affair. I did have an affair.
So all of this constant convincing of her to go to Reno was for nothing? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Now, you gave sworn testimony in the deposition in this case, correct? Through another aspect of this.
I did. Let me clarify something for you that may help you a little bit. At the time that this conversation went down with Savannah, at the time this conversation went down, I did not know. I did not know the event was scheduled because I didn't keep my calendar. Savannah kept my calendar. So
Okay,
I did not know that.
So you fully intended that you would go, when you're talking to her, you're thinking you will be going to
When
Reno.
I'm talking to her, then I think that we're going to be going to Reno, yes.
And when you're talking with her, you're thinking you're going to be paying this out of the sheriff's fund to pay for Reno, correct?
I thought that we would be able to get one room compensated by a local company, and that one room would go to the county bill.
And the local company was B or Brandon. He was your friend that once worked with you at the sheriff's department, right?
That is correct.
As a matter of fact, when you were elected, you brought him back briefly, correct?
No, that is not correct. Brandon did not work for the sheriff's office.
were you working towards helping him get some sort of retirement benefits or some sort of benefits?
Brandon wanted to come on as a civilian employee with the sheriff's office because he was making more money where he was at, traveling and doing his new job. He liked the perks of his new job, but he did ask if he could come back as a civilian employee. Brandon wanted to be able to use the credentials as a current law enforcement officer if he went somewhere because it would bolster his current job position that he had. Brandon was a retired deputy, and Brandon's position as a retired deputy didn't always give him the credentials that he thought he needed when he went to other places. Brandon and I had discussed the option of bringing him in as a civilian personnel that instructed in the company that he was with is a company that does tactical medical work, and we had a tactical medical unit on our SWAT team. So he was going to be able to assist with those guys and do certain things with his previous SWAT experience. But it was a civilian. It was in a non-paid position.
And you were seeking to get a comp room from him, right?
We talked about a comp room, yes.
But the other room would be paid for through the Sheriff's Department's travel fund,
That's correct.
and the plane flights would be paid for by the Sheriff's Department travel fund.
That would be correct.
Any meals you had there would be paid for by the Sheriff's Department travel fund.
If we took per diem, yes.
All right. And even if you didn't take per diem, you could charge things, meals, and then bring them back off of your Sheriff's Department credit card, right?
Or a personal card, either one, yes, sir.
So all those things would have been paid for by the Sheriff's Department's travel fund.
If I did not elect to pay for them with my own personal fund as the meals, yes, sir.
Okay. You had no intention of paying for your personal funds for the flight or the one hotel room, correct?
No, sir, I probably would not have done it.
Now, you said you hired Abby after, what's Abby's last name again?
Are you saying Abby?
Yes.
No,
Abby.
sir.
Addie,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry.
Yes, sir.
What is Addie's last name?
Now it's Chic. It was Hampton.
Addie Hampton at the time. And you had hired her to replace Savannah, correct?
That is correct.
But you were telling us that you weren't making the decision on that, you had the other three making the decision for you?
I did.
So this most important position to you, your right-hand person, you wanted someone else to make the decision?
At the time, I trusted Marcus and Ty and Jackie to make that decision. Jackie saw from an administrative perspective what the position entailed because she was able to see Savannah on a day-to-day from an administrative perspective. Ty and Marcus were able to see Savannah on the outside when she went places and did things. So I thought that was a great perspective to have for a person to come take that position.
So you were just basically there to finally approve who they chose?
Ultimately,
And you made the suggestion, though, of this girl from Tennessee, the name Sydney Salati?
Sydney Salati. Sorry.
You don't remember that name?
No, sir.
You remember providing a picture of a young woman, a pretty young woman to them?
No, sir.
Now,
Do you have a picture or anything to show me?
I'll be asking questions. Did you show them a picture?
No.
Did you ever suggest to anyone that Savannah should get a raise after she'd been there for a short time?
I suggested at the, I believe, first night that we were in Charlotte before Savannah and I had slept together, I suggested to Joe that Savannah get a raise because she had been working in that position a lot, many hours.
And you felt it was appropriate for her to have a raise even though she'd just been working for a matter of a few months?
I thought it was appropriate for her to have a raise because, again, the position was brand new and we didn't realize how much people were going to be working until we actually started the transition. So I thought it was appropriate with the amount of time that she was working to give her a raise. Apparently she did too because she put it in her lawsuit.
Did you ever actually get the raise for her?
Actually, the raise was approved.
It was approved. Who approved that raise?
Well, I'm assuming that Joe Cornell approved it because Addie Hampton received $68,000 a year over Savannah's $62,000 a year. So Addie got the raise that we asked for from the county administrator.
So you're saying that Addie Hampton at $68,000 would be over the cap of what is paid to an administrative coordinator?
Based on the numbers that you gave me earlier, she would be over the cap as administrative coordinator, but I did not know those numbers to be the cap.
And she was hired as administrative coordinator, correct?
Who?
Addie Hampton?
Addie Hampton was, yes, she was hired as the administrative coordinator. Same position that Savannah had.
Now, I'm going to show you some mark. This would be number 21.
Yeah, I do have an objection to this.
There's an objection on it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me take this up to the lawyers. I'm gonna ask you to go to just a few minutes. I'm watching the clock too. So, this will be a very short break. And it might be a turnaround break. So, don't discuss the case among yourselves while you're here.
Is a filing, the responses and objections of Sheriff Will Lewis and the Greenville County Sheriff's Office to plaintiff's first set of requests to admit to defendants. It's the filing from the civil case in which on response number 6, the question is, please admit that Will Lewis purchased lubricant during a trip to Charlotte at some point between March 7th, 2017 and March 9th, 2017, and the response is admitted.
That is not Mr. Lewis's signature on it. It is not verified. He was asked, had his
Haven't we
step.
been through this before with the complaint?
Well,
Yes, and it was let in.
but that was simply about her claim. Are you claiming? And she said yes. But the point is, if they wanted to bring in this lawyer who signed that pleading and have them testify that Will Lewis told her that, it would be admissible.
Well, we could have applied the same logic when you offered the complaint.
Well, they didn't ask about it, but this is, you know, but this is a little different too when you're dealing with a defendant too.
It isn't just because it was his official answer at that time. This is
And
law
what's in,
court
what,
file.
read it again.
It's number 6, and it says, please admit that Will Lewis purchased lubricant during a trip to Charlotte.
Purchase lubricant.
Yes. At some point between March 7th, 2017 and March 9th, 2018, and the response is admitted.
Well, why don't you answer that question?
My point is, it's not verified.
No, without using that document. If he denies it,
And I can use the document?
you can impeach him. Or you can bring his lawyer.
I think he can bring the lawyer, though. That's correct.
The the defendant is responsible for his answer.
But it's not verified. This,
It is, Judge, it is to that,
That's not verified.
How is it not verified? It was filed as the official answer in court.
I understand. Do you understand what I mean by verified? It's not verified by this man here. As the complaint was not verified by Ms. Neighbors. She didn't verify that complaint. I would sustain the same objection had you made it to the complaint. I don't, I'll say this, I'll say it for the record. I don't like throwing around pleadings in a criminal case and proving a criminal case by using civil documents. They're not verified. It just, I don't approve of that. Now, it's happened once in this case, but there was no objection. Now there's an objection. I'm going to sustain the objection.
Then, Your Honor, can I clarify? I can ask you, but I can't bring this document in.
Right. You can say, didn't you tell your lawyer? But that may be privileged.
Yeah.
Huh?
We would have to argue privilege till then.
After it's been through a lawsuit, Judge, I don't know that it is privileged anymore. Is the answer within the,
Well, thanks, sir.
I think the privilege part is the question to deal with the actual conversation. I don't know where this came from. I mean, that's not.
You know where the complaint came from?
I know where the document came from. I know where the answer came from, because he was asked the same question in a deposition, and he said.
Well, there might be another way to prove it.
Yeah. But more there is that the lawyer came in and said that's what he told me.
I don't know that it's, I don't want to spend half the night talking about Luber. Ready for jury?
yes, Your Honor.
Bring it to it. Somebody's got to go. Oh. What's your schedule look like?
It's going to be still a little while there.
Well, I'm not gonna keep the jury here past 6 o'clock. You have more cross-examination.
Yes, I have more than just.
All right, then we'll. You still want to come in at 10 o'clock?
Well, 9:30 is fine if we're going to be doing cross-examination. Yes.
I'm gonna excuse the jury.
My thought had come in at 9:30 was good.
I understand, do the charge conference.
And we can just work it in later.
What forces in place? All right, I'm gonna excuse the jury. Just have to see. Yeah, you can retrieve. to jury. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long day. We're gonna adjourn until in the morning. I've been advised by counsel that the cross-examination is still somewhat lengthy, so we'll resume at 9:30 in the morning. We should finish tomorrow. I have every expectation that we'll finish tomorrow. I don't have a crystal ball. So I'm going to excuse you now for the evening and ask that you not again discuss the case with anyone else over the evening hours. Don't do any independent research. Don't watch the news, please. And I found that this week, I mean, I'm a news junkie, and this week I get home so late I don't get to watch the news, and I don't miss it. I found it. So anyway, we'll see you at 9:30 in the morning. All right, Carrie. Thompson, this will give you 12 or so hours to focus your cross-examination so we can move right along in the morning. Stand at ease from 9:30. And you have, I've emailed both of you proposed jury instructions. Mr. Lewis, I know it's an evening break. You're under instructions not to talk to your attorney about this or anybody else over the evening hours except your family, which you certainly.
Yeah, the only problem I have with that is that he probably needs to be informed of what was discussed in his absence while he went to the restroom.
Oh.
And I don't mind telling the court I'll just discuss that with him, nothing else.
There was a question about buying lubricant in Charlotte, and your counsel objected to that line of questioning based on some documents that Mr. Thompson had. I sustained the objection. I did not allow it.
Well, technically, I believe that you sustained the objection of the admissibility of the document.
Yeah.
Okay.
But thank you for clarifying.
We had discussed this earlier, so it's no surprise to me.
Okay. Stand in.